Welcome to WION Speed. I'm Akanksha Swaroop. In the next 30 minutes, I bring you the top stories we're tracking from across the globe. Let's get started. India has demolished claims made by Pakistan and China. It has made it clear that Jammu and Kashmir is an internal matter. New Delhi has once again told Pakistan that talks and terror cannot go hand in hand. This after India's major diplomatic win at the UN. Pakistan and its all-weather ally China has been shamed at the world stage. The UNSC in its closed-door meeting said that the Kashmir issue should be handled bilaterally. This comes as a major blow to especially China, which had called the closed meeting on Pakistan's request. The United States has further cut Pakistan's aid by $440 million. The US has now brought down its commitments under the Kerry-Lugar-Berman Act to just $4.1 billion as per reports. The decision to cut the economic aid was officially conveyed to Islamabad about 3 weeks before the visit of Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan to the United States. The news is not a good one, for which Pakistan is suffering from an economic meltdown and looking for foreign help. The White House has advanced a proposal to sell $8 billion worth advanced F-16 fighter jets to Taiwan. The proposal would now be put forward to the Congress for approval. The move is likely to anger the strategic rival China. China regards Taiwan as a part of its own territory, whereas Taiwan considered itself a separate sovereign nation and is a close ally of the United States. Earlier this year, Taiwan had requested for the F-16s as part of a plan to upgrade its air defense systems. The Russian pilot who managed to smoothly land a disabled plane in a cornfield was honored on Friday. President Vladimir Putin awarded the 41-year-old Damir Yusupov with the nation's highest medal. Yusupov had managed to safely land his plane after both the plane's engines were disabled after being hit by a flock of birds. The plane's second pilot and other crew members were also awarded by the president. Hong Kong's government has announced tax cuts and high social spending to boost the economic situation in the region, which is under tremendous pressure due to anti-government protests and the US-Chinese tariff war. The secretary said the decision was taken to remove the burden over the citizens, which could help 1.3 million taxpayers. The total relief package will cost around $2.4 billion to Hong Kong's domestic reserves. Hong Kong protesters expressed their disappointment at a social media post made by Milan actress Liu Hefei supporting the city's police. This comes as thousands gathered on the eve of another weekend of major protests. The actress wrote that it is shameful for the protesters to prolong with the protests. Protesters said they would not watch the actress's film in theatres. 10 weeks of confrontations between police and protesters have plunged Hong Kong into its worst crisis. Indigenous protesters overran police and entered Health Ministry on Monday in Brazil's capital city. In the encounter, police officers were outnumbered as they tried to keep the protesters out. This was part of the first march organized by Indigenous women in Brazil. The Indigenous community lives on reservations that make up about 13% of the country's territory, which includes areas of the Amazon. Right-wing President Jair Bolsonaro has said that it is too much land for such few people and has vowed to review some reservation borders. Indigenous groups say the land is sacred and must be protected. Zimbabwe's riot police clashed with protesters in Harare. The clashes were over calls for President Emmerson Mnangagwa to set up a transitional authority to address economic problems and organize credible elections. Officers and riot gear maintained a heavy presence in the center of the city as many residents stayed home and shops were shut in anticipation of violence. Police cordoned off Central Africa's Unity Square, where the demonstrators had planned to gather. Thousands of travelers at US airports faced delays because of an outage of US Customs and Border Protection's processing systems. Late on Friday, people at various US airports posted videos on social media of lengthy lines at processing checkpoints. Passengers disembarking at airports in Washington, D.C. reported delays of 2 to 4 hours. However, after several hours, CBP issued a statement saying its computers were coming back online. Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf signed an executive order directing state police to focus on addressing gun violence. The move comes 2 days after a gunman shot 6 Philadelphia police officers. Wolf set up a new special council on gun violence and gave it 6 months to recommend how to reduce mass shootings, domestic violence, suicides and accidental shootings. He also established the Office of Gun Violence Prevention at the Pennsylvania Commission on Crime and Delinquency.
But while the Democrats rage and resist,
US President Donald Trump mocked one of his supporters of his weight. This happened in Trump's recent rally in New Hampshire. The incident unfolded as Trump was speaking on stage and was interrupted by a handful of protesters.
start exercising. Get them out of here, please.
Trump mistook him as one of the protesters and fat-shamed him. The supporter has reportedly laughed off the incident.
His mom says, "What the hell have you just done?"
The body of the Irish teenager who went missing in Malaysia was moved early today from the hospital where her autopsy was carried out. The family of Nora Ann Quirin, who suffered from learning difficulties, said she will be laid to rest close to her loving families in Ireland and France. Malaysian police on Thursday ruled out abduction as a motive in her disappearance. She was found dead near a jungle stream after a 10-day search. Police said they had found no signs pointing to foul play. The CEO of Hong Kong carrier Cathay Pacific Airways, Rupert Hogg, resigned on Friday. This has been the highest-profile corporate casualty of unrest, roiling the former British colony. The resignation comes after Beijing targeted the airline over staff involvement in mass protests. Fierce fighting took place around the northwestern Syrian province of Idlib as pro-government forces continued to make advances against rebels in the region. Backed by Russia, the forces had seized several and were combing nearby farms. Now, the government offensive in Idlib, which began in April, has gained momentum in recent days. Assad's troops, backed by Russia, have made significant advances in the country's last rebel-held bastion. Myanmar and Bangladesh will try again to repatriate some of the 700,000 Rohingya Muslims who fled a brutal security crackdown almost 2 years ago. The United Nations Refugee Agency confirmed on Friday a repatriation attempt failed last year when no refugees agreed to return to Myanmar. UN High Commissioner for Refugees spokesperson Caroline Gluck said the Bangladesh government has asked UNHCR for helping ensuring that the 3,450 people on a new list of returnees are going back voluntarily. Verdict in the retrial of a Salvadoran woman convicted of homicide of her stillbirth is expected this Monday. The 21-year-old woman named Evelyn Hernandez has already served 3 years of a 30-year prison sentence. El Salvador bans abortion in all circumstances. Any intentional termination of pregnancy in El Salvador, including stillbirth due to home delivery, can be prosecuted as a crime. Some 147 women have been sentenced to up to 40 years in prison in such cases between 2000 and 2014. The National Aeronautic and Space Center, NASA, have picked Alabama's Rocket City to lead the development of the next moon lander for astronauts. The new lunar lander is meant to carry an American woman and a man to the moon's south pole by 2024. What is interesting is that the lander is not yet built or even designed. The Marshall Space Flight Center was chosen over the Johnson Space Center, which had managed the Apollo lunar landing in 1969. Hundreds of students in Berlin skipped school on Friday to protest against climate change. They joined in the latest Friday for Future protests, which have taken off well, particularly in Germany. Students carried boards reading slogans like "We are young and need the world," and "It's time to rebel to save the future." Thousands of students from across the globe have been coming out and launching strikes in school to protest against climate change. A number of earthquakes shook parts of the Kansas City on Friday. Ceiling tiles were knocked down and windows broken at some of the areas. The strongest earthquake measured 4.2 on the Richter scale. This was followed by 3 small aftershocks in the area. The quakes were felt to an extent of some 300 kilometers from the epicenter in Hutchinson. Animals at the risk of extinction are expected to be at the center of discussions at the United Nations Watchdog on Wildlife Trade kicks off negotiations in Geneva. The 183 member states will consider and debate over the 56 proposals between August 17th and August 28th. One of the proposals, supported by several African nations, urges the transfer of all elephant population to Appendix of the Convention, meaning an absolute ban on elephant trade. Three Bengal tiger cubs made their public debut in a zoo in Lima recently. The tigers were born on July 5th with a rare white tiger amongst the litter. They are now strong enough to be out in their enclosure for periods of time. Between 5,000 to 7,000 tigers alive in the wild, down from 100,000 at the start of the 20th century. Poaching, deforestation and overhunting have hugely impacted their numbers. Researchers in Ecuador are investigating the wizened cranium of Amazon warrior. Doing so, they hope to unlock the secrets of the macabre pre-Hispanic practice. The shrunken head, known as the Santa, is believed to come from the Shuar, an indigenous people of Ecuador. The head was previously stored in the Vatican for nearly a century before being returned to the Andean nation in 2017. These heads go through a unique mummification process. In popular belief, the shrunken heads trap the spirit of the fallen. Tourists were treated to a night among the stars in Jordan's Wadi Rum desert, thanks to newly installed telescopes that offer a close-up view of some parts of the solar system. The computerized telescopes located at the Rum Sky Center are connected to satellite GPS and enable visitors to see and learn about constellations and planets like Mars and Jupiter. Astronomy experts say their primary goal is to reconnect people with nature and take them away from their phones, if only for a short while. Greece's famed Koroni Castle was completely illuminated as a full moon cast its glow on the castle. The full moon lit up the sea beneath the medieval fortress. Koroni's castle city was built in the 13th century by the Venetians over the ruins of an ancient acropolis. shift our attention over to the world of sports as Ravi Shastri has been appointed as the head coach of the Indian cricket team for a second term. The three-member cricket advisory committee headed by former captain Kapil Dev announced the decision in Mumbai, and Shastri was chosen over the likes of Mike Hesson and Tom Moody for the coveted role. Shastri, head coach since 2017, was an automatic entry into the selection process, and he had been backed to retain his job by captain Virat Kohli. India have retained their #1 test ranking during Shastri's tenure and reached the semis of the ICC World Cup. Shastri will be appointed on a new 2-year contract till the end of the 2021 World T20 in India.